So now we have cut out with our large double fluted flush cut bit with our nylon bearing. Because of the bearing that you see right here, this difference between the cutter and the edge of this bearing is how much material we still have left right here. So we have a slope going down the side on our sink. It's not straight down. So therefore this is not going to give you a flat cut right here. So the material we cut out a 1/2 inch material. We came in through, routed it out, and this is what we're left with now. So now what I have to do is I have to give this nice round over edge that will sand out around the sink. And the way that I achieve that is with a bowl bit. So Corian, other different products, they make different bowl bits, okay? Usually you want to try to get a bowl bit that has the same contour as the sink that you're using. Bowl bits cannot be resharpened. So you take a double fluted bit like this. If you want to get life out of it, you can go and you can resharpen it. But in order to resharpen this bit, what are you doing? You're cutting down on it, okay? So you're taking away some of the carbide. Well, if you do that on a bowl bit, you could potentially change the slope of it and it won't cut inside your sink the same. Now, I know that this particular bowl bit doesn't fit this sink exactly. It was provided by the manufacturer, but through one time when I tried it previously, it didn't quite get where it needs to be. Now, sometimes they'll say, that's okay, you could finish the rest on sanding and take the rest of the meat of it off. I prefer to try to get as close as you can so that you don't have to sand as much as possible, because one of the issues that people can have, especially if they're using an electric sander, even if it's an orbital, they can either spend too much time sanding in one area and they can end up dipping the sink in. They can overheat an area and end up causing a failure right here so that it cracks where it meets the counter. So I'd rather make it where the sanding process is pretty quick, especially in an inside corner. Inside corners are hard to sand. They make some sanders that can get in there, but ultimately it's always just using your hand with some sandpaper to clean it up, and you want to make sure that you're not sitting there all day sanding on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and start cutting into our profile and see if I have to do any adjustments. The way that I've pre-adjusted it is I take where that curve starts on my profile bit here and I try to get my base as flat as possible. You could take a piece of 1/2 inch stock and use it to run up and see where it goes, but I usually try to eyeball it, see how close we can come, and then I go and I test the spot. So I'll go in, and again, just like on our double fluted bit, we have a nylon bearing so that we don't scratch the sink, but we also want to keep an eye on that bearing. Nylon bearings, just like regular steel bearings, blow out. If they blow out, you no longer have that buffer between your bit and the material to be able to hold it back, and it's going to dive into your material, cut into your sink, ruin your top, and we don't want to see that happen. So we make sure that everything is set before we plug the router in. Grab safety gear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to pull again back towards me so I have control of the router. I'm going to start this away from the material and pull into it, and I'm going to test it. If I just test it a little bit, I'll be able to see how close I come and if I have to make any adjustments for the height of my bit while I'm cutting in. So I set it, again, away. One of the things too is, when I'm routering, I like to know where the cord is. I like to make sure that I have enough length to get around everything if I need to. I like to make sure it's not gonna hang up on anything and kind of pull me back, because the last thing you want is, while this is running, to be trying to adjust your cord. That's how accidents happen. So I know my cord's good. I have a good handle here. I'm gonna look down, start the bit away from my material, and bring it in and run it just about an inch to be able to see how it cuts. Okay, so in looking at it right here, what I have is the bit is not going down far enough. So it's cutting in to the sink and it's leaving a little bit of meat there, okay? But that is not heavy. That's not too bad to sand off, okay? So if I go and I adjust this right where it's at right now, maybe a little bit deeper, I should be okay. But as you see up here on the deck, see how we're starting to cut slightly into the deck? So if I go deeper on this bit, I may get this meat off down here a little bit more, which is really not much. Can you grab me a piece of sandpaper? Because ultimately, just to illustrate on it, if I sand that by hand right now, and I just take a quick minute, okay, and again, on these straight runs, you would be using a power sander. I take that meat right off, okay? So that tells me now, like where I thought I might have to adjust, I really don't have to. I'll stay where I'm at. This little ridge I have right here will sand out when I sand my deck, and then I should have a nice round over here, okay? Now, the ultimate ideal way for this bit to cut would be where I didn't have that meat and I wasn't cutting a little bit into there. So that's what I meant before by saying it doesn't exactly match, okay? But it's close enough, all right? So I can make it work. And that's the other advantage too, is they try to make bowl bits that are more universal. So you can use them on a couple of different types of sinks rather than one for every one. So I'm gonna run the rest of this all the way around. Once I get done, then I'll sand this slightly out and our sink will be complete.